How's it going, partners? Welcome to the Old West and Sterling on Cinemas. That's Cinemas with an S. And today we're back in 1885 with our review on Back to the Future Part 3 as part of the Way Back Wednesday series. Before I begin, if you're new to this video, or new to this playlist, or new to this channel per se, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment on the section below, and click that bell to keep up to date with all things Sterling on Cinemas, and most importantly, watch. And if you're watching this on Instagram, do the same exact thing verbatim. Like, follow, share with your friends and family so that they can travel along this journey with us. Let's get started, shall we? In this final chapter of the Back to the Future trilogy, Marty McFly obtains a 70-year-old message from the time-traveling Dr. Emmett Brown, in which he informs Marty that he has retired to a small town in the Old West. Marty then finds out that the doc was murdered shortly after sending the letter after being struck by lightning. Well, not being, disregard that, not being struck by lightning, when he got shot in the back. In order to save his friend, Marty will have to travel back into the Old West, to the Western Times, 1800s, to disentangle a lovestruck doc from a local schoolmarm named Clara Clayton and repair the DeLorean, all while avoiding a posse of gunslingers. So, Back to the Future trilogy is a trilogy that really took the audience on the time loop, which with each of the installments having the exact same structure. The first one can never be forgotten and will always stand the test of time, and the second one flips the script of the first one, making for an all-out and wacky sci-fi adventure. But the third entry is a whole different story. Filmed back-to-back with the part 2, Back to the Future. Back to the Future came out in 89. This came out a year later. I'm assuming this is the movie that started the whole filming back-to-back trend before we had Lord of the Rings franchise and Avengers 3 and 4. But part 3 possesses a self-contained plot that isn't eligible for comparison. It not only feels different from its predecessors, but it is different with its Western setting. Furthermore, when watching part 3, it does not even feel or look like a sci-fi adventure, to the point where all you see is what you saw back in 89 and 85 when those movies came out. It may have some of the same signature Back to the Future gags, like Marty entering a bar/restaurant, running into your younger relatives, or that notorious clock tower. But instead of telling the story in the same sequential order, they decide to change a few things and give other characters different roles. Back to the Future Part 3 has those same Western tropes that you would expect from the average Clint Eastwood movie, like the unsung individual walking into the town, then they expect him to be the new sheriff, or a lack of water, or trying to get a clock working. But it manages to deliver the same tricks and wits that made the first two so popular, in spite of not being or feeling as exuberant as the first two. Back to the Future Part 3 is not worth derailing. The characters. It feels like our protagonist and deuteragonist, that's the secondary main character, have their respective purposes in this outing. In a sense, Marty McFly is returning to the favor for Doc after helping him regain his existence in time and help him to send him back to the future in 1985. We see that after supposedly getting sent back to 85, the Marty of that time traveled from 2015 back to 1955, met with the Doc that just sent that Marty back to the future, or in his words, he's back from the future. Now, with Marty reading Doc's letters and going back 70 years before 1955, which is 1885, during the 1800s, he is forced to go back there and prevent his death from happening. Yet again, Marty gets himself into the same shenanigans that we have seen him twice already, like passing out and waking up in his mom's crib entering a bar only to be approached by Mad Dog Tannen or Biff Tannen in the other entries, or running into Doc. One would think that after seeing moments like these occurring already, that it gets old and exhausting. Like when you're watching your favorite franchise and you're seeing the same things over and over, it can get tiring, it can get old, it can get obsolete. But the reason why the same thing works is because they each play out differently. Each of the times that Marty has entered a bar in different time periods, they do not all end the same way. The first one ends with him chasing after his dad. The second one ends with him being chased after Biff. And the third one kind of ends the same way, only with Doc intervening. Sure, the two ends with McFly being chased by Tannen, but the way those scenes are laid out are not exactly the same. As for Doc, his eccentric genius enthusiasm is what helped the audience become engaged in time traveling in the first place. Emmett Brown is one of those characters who goes on and on and on about the same thing like all you know is science, which there never seemed to be anything else to give him a little more dimension as a character. But then he falls in love. He falls in love. Now, seeing this side of Doc who desires love shows that he is more than someone who just desires the laws of time travel. Buford Tannen's role proceeds with being the obstacle that stands in their way, as you would expect, just like you've seen in the past two films. Rotten Tomatoes gives Back to the Future Part 3 an 80% score. That is the percentage that it currently stands at. Back to the Future Part 3 may not be the biggest or even the best. It depends on what your opinion is on these movies. A lot of people say 2 is the best, and I would say 2 is the best as well. But it managed to bring a well-earned conclusion to a trilogy that could only be packed with so much in it. Like 2 had so much going on, and 1 had enough. And this had little. For a story that took a few steps back both literally and contextually, it still brings fresh ideas after you would think that they had run out due to the predecessors. So I would give this movie 8.9 SOs out of 10. So that was my series of reviews on the entire Back to the Future franchise, Back to the Future 3. Now, my opinion, the way I feel, I don't think this franchise would need a 4. Because I know we always get late sequels to these popular franchises, and the most popular opinion is that, oh, these late sequels ruined the whole franchise. I think it's best to keep it at 3. Even if we would love to see Marty McFly and Doc Emmett Brown go on another time-traveling adventure, we still get to see them alive today here in good old 2021. So I hope y'all enjoyed those bunch of Back to the Future reviews. Y'all can let me know what y'all feel about this franchise in the comments below. How is it compared to other pop culture franchises for you? And I'll see y'all next week with my mysterious throwback on Way Back Wednesday. Peace out.